Hello, dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we're bringing you a heartfelt romantic tale. So let's dive in. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss a single meaningful story. Amelia Brooks stood silently before the worn-down house, her muddy boots sinking into the soggy earth. A cold April wind whispered past, causing the rotting fence planks to rattle like bones. With hands on her hips, she frowned, surveying the decay. A sagging roof, shattered glass windows, and wild overgrowth swallowing what was once a home. To most, it was just a crumbling wreck, but to Amelia, it was her last shot at restoring everything she had lost. At 28, Amelia was a driven architect with neatly pinned brown hair and sharp green eyes that sparkled with determination. Raised under the legacy of Brooks and Sons, her family's modest construction firm in suburban Virginia, she had grown up chasing her father, Henry, through building sites with a sketch pad in one hand and a country tune on her lips. He taught her to read blueprints before long division, to angle a wall before understanding love. A house isn't just bricks, he used to say. It's where someone's dream lives. But that dream collapsed 5 years ago. Brooks and Sons was swallowed whole by a ruthless corporate takeover. Projects vanished. Clients disappeared. Debts buried her family like wet cement. Her father grew ill, heart disease the doctors claimed, but Amelia knew the real cause, a broken heart. Her once glowing mother became a shadow, constantly at Henry's bedside. They lost the business, their home, and their hope. Still, Amelia pressed forward. Graduating at the top of her class in architecture, she took a job at a mid-tier design firm in Richmond. But drafting commercial cafes and cookie-cutter houses didn't fill the void. Night after night, she'd sit hunched over her desk, sketching her dreams, homes she might never build. Then one day, a lifeline appeared. A rundown house in Willow Creek was up for auction. With a tight budget and a prayer, she made the winning bid. It was no palace, but Amelia saw something no one else did. The town of Willow Creek was peaceful, lined with oak trees and white picket fences. Her new house stood at the end of Maple Road, beside a vacant lot with a rusted iron gate. The day she moved in, it rained. She cursed the drizzle as she hauled boxes from her groaning pickup truck. Soaked to the bone and doubting her sanity, she questioned everything, until she heard a voice. She was struggling with a crate on the porch when a deep, amused voice rang out behind her. "Planning to tear down the whole street with that thing?" Spinning around, she found herself face to face with a man. Tall, early 30s, messy black hair, and stormy gray eyes that cut like ice. Dressed in black, with rolled-up sleeves, he looked casual, but something about him radiated quiet power. His face, all hard lines and sharp angles, gave nothing away. "Well, hello to you too," Amelia snapped, sarcasm lacing her voice. "Let me guess, president of the Anti-Newcomer Club?" His lips curled slightly, but it was more of a smirk than a smile. "Grayson Blackwood," he said, nodding toward the shadowy mansion behind the trees. "I live next door, and I hate noise." "Well, good news," Amelia replied, dragging the crate with effort. "I'm fixing a house, not hosting Coachella." The rain soaked through her jacket, but she refused to let him see her shiver. Grayson's eyes flicked over her, from dripping hair to dirt-streaked boots. "You're wasting your time," he muttered. "That place is a dump." Amelia raised a brow. "Appreciate the unsolicited advice. Now, if you'll excuse me." She turned back to the house, her heart pounding, not just from the effort, but from something else. Something about Grayson Blackwood lingered, like a question she didn't want to answer. In the days that followed, Amelia threw herself into the work. She measured every inch, sketched endless layouts, and examined the house's bones. Every warped board whispered a piece of its history, but money was tight, and quotes from contractors nearly knocked the wind out of her. Refusing to give up, she started doing the work herself, ripping up floors, removing debris, cutting corners where she could. Grayson wasn't much of a neighbor. True to his cold introduction, he kept his distance. But she often caught him jogging at dawn or lingering by the fence, watching her struggle with beams. One morning, as she wrestled a stubborn board, that familiar voice came again. "Do you even know what you're doing?" Not mocking exactly, more like a test. Amelia glared. "I'm an architect, not a child. Think I'm building with Legos?" He shrugged, arms folded. Architect or not, that board's about to fall on you. Before she could retort, the board cracked and wobbled. Amelia jumped back, heart hammering. Grayson said nothing, just shot her a look that screamed, "Told you so." She bit her lip and got back to work, pretending not to notice. But something had shifted. She found herself wondering about him, about the man behind the fence with eyes like storms and words like daggers. One night, Amelia sat on the porch, blueprints spread around her. A single flashlight lit up the papers as she calculated costs. Her budget was bleeding dry. No investors. No plan B. She leaned back, staring at the stars over Willow Creek. And then, footsteps. Grayson appeared out of the shadows, a mug in hand, walking like the world owed him nothing. "Working late's not smart," he said, stopping near the steps. Amelia glanced up, raising an eyebrow. "Worried about me, or worried I'll keep hammering past bedtime?" He didn't answer. Instead, he lowered himself onto a nearby rock and took a sip. "You know who used to own that place?" She shook her head. "Only that it's been empty for years." His gaze drifted toward the house. The Harper family lived here for generations until the recession took everything. It meant something to them. Then he looked at her, eyes unreadable. "What do you think you can do with it?" She wasn't sure if it was a challenge or genuine curiosity. She picked up a sketch and handed it to him. "I want to make it a home again. Not just pretty, alive. A place someone can belong to." Grayson stared at the paper for a moment, silent. Then in a voice softer than she'd ever heard from him, he said, "Hope you know what you're doing, Brooks." He rose and walked away, leaving her with blueprints and a strange flutter in her chest. Amelia Brooks sat cross-legged in the dusty living room, papers scattered on a worn table under the dim glow of an old desk lamp. The wind howled through the cracks, blending with the crickets outside in a haunting lullaby. She rubbed her temples, staring at the renovation budget, a sea of red numbers threatening to drown her dream. Her bank had denied another loan, and no contractor came cheap. For the first time, doubt began to win. A knock interrupted her spiral of thoughts. She frowned, checking the time. Nearly 10 p.m. Who knocks at this hour? Wiping her hands on her jeans, she opened the door, and there stood Grayson Blackwood. Same guarded look, same cold eyes. But tonight, something was off. There was a tightness in his posture, an invisible weight behind his silence. "Blackwood," she greeted, folding her arms. "If you're here to complain about my hammer again, I stopped before 8. He didn't respond with a snide comment. He just looked at her like he was reading a blueprint she didn't know she was showing. "I have a proposition," he said, voice low. "Hear me out." Amelia narrowed her eyes, part skeptical, part intrigued. "What kind of proposition brings you to my doorstep this late?" He glanced behind, then stepped in uninvited. She closed the door behind him, unease creeping up her spine. He stood in the center of the room, tall and still, hands in pockets. Then bluntly, he said, "I need a wife." Amelia blinked. "Excuse me?" "A contract wife," he clarified, as if talking about a business deal. "1 year. No feelings, no strings, just paperwork." She laughed once, dry and startled. "What is this? A rom-com audition?" She turned away, thinking he must be joking. But when she looked back, he was still there. "I'm not kidding," he said. "My family's trying to force me into a marriage I don't want. If I don't stop it, they'll take over everything. I need someone they won't expect. I need you to play the part." Amelia stared, arms folded. "Why me? Don't you have friends? A girlfriend? Someone else desperate enough to say yes?" He gave a hollow smile. "You're perfect. You don't know me. You're not tangled in my family's web. And," he looked around at her cluttered room, "you need money." The words hit hard. Amelia felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she couldn't deny it. She needed funds to save this house, to settle her family's debts, to start over. Grayson stepped into the foyer, his expression unreadable, but the tightness in his jaw was unmistakable. "Serena, what are you doing here?" he asked, voice clipped. Serena turned to him with a polished smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, just in the neighborhood. Thought I'd say hello. Didn't expect company." Her gaze drifted to Amelia, who stood her ground, arms crossed, dirt on her jeans. pain on her cheek, and not an ounce of apology in her stance. Amelia offered a polite, if frosty, smile. "Hi, wife, for a year, contract and all." Grayson nearly choked, but Serena's eyes flashed. "How charming. Always full of surprises, Grayson." She glided past Amelia like a cat claiming territory. "Well," Serena said coolly, "if your arrangement ever becomes too much, Grayson, you know where to find me." With a kiss on the cheek far too close to his lips, Serena left. The door closed behind her, and silence settled like fog. Amelia looked at him. "Old friend, huh?" Grayson rubbed the back of his neck. "She's not important. She seems to think otherwise." Grayson's gaze darkened. "She's part of why I needed this arrangement. My family thinks I need to marry into status. Serena's their ideal. Cold, calculated, with the right pedigree. I refused. That's when I proposed this, us." "And what exactly do they think this is?" He exhaled. "A secret, for now, but eventually I'll introduce you. Play the part. They'll back off. Then I'll be free." Amelia's stomach twisted. "Free?" Grayson met her eyes. "From them. From their plans." She nodded slowly, but something uneasy stirred in her. Was she helping him escape, or getting tangled in a web he wouldn't name? Later that night, in the quiet of her room, Amelia stared at the ceiling, Serena's elegant smirk haunting her. It wasn't jealousy, at least not entirely. It was a realization. This fake marriage was starting to feel real, and real came with risks. Blackwood Gala. Every polished word, every scrutinizing gaze haunted her. The clink of champagne glasses echoed in her head like mockery. She tried to distract herself, scribbling notes on the blueprint in front of her, but her pen hovered uselessly above the page. What did she expect? That she'd suddenly fit into that glossy world because she wore a dress and some pearls? Her phone buzzed. "Grayson, are you okay?" "I didn't want to leave things like that." She stared at the message, her thumb hovering, heart tightening. She could still feel the warmth of his hand from earlier, the sincerity in his voice when he said she made him want to be real. But was it enough? Before she could reply, the door creaked open. Lily stepped inside, holding 2 takeout bags and a look that said, "You better talk or I'll start guessing dramatically." "Okay, soup dumplings and brutal honesty. Your 2 favorite things," Lily said, settling onto the couch without waiting for an invitation. Amelia groaned, leaning back. "Please don't say anything. I already know I look like a confused Disney extra at that party." Lily handed her a box of dumplings. "Number you look like you, which is exactly why you're in trouble. That guy isn't just rich. He's Blackwood rich. That kind of money comes with claws." Amelia exhaled slowly. "Yeah, and those claws scratch deep tonight." "But you're not just some pawn, Amelia." Lily paused, watching her closely. "You're stronger than you think. If you really care about him, if he really cares about you, then you've got to stop hiding behind contracts and start asking the hard questions. What's really going on with him? What is he not telling you?" Amelia chewed silently, thoughts tumbling. What was he hiding? The man who made her laugh, who fixed her porch light without asking, who gave her earrings she was too afraid to wear outside, could he really be just another Blackwood, ruled by legacy and secrets? Before bed, she replied to Grayson's message. "Amelia, I'm not okay, but I'm not running either. We need to talk. No contracts, no lies." Grayson read the message in the glow of his study, a place filled with old books, family portraits, and shadows. He stared out the window toward the soft light in Amelia's house. She had no idea what she was walking into. The gala had been the first test. The real storm hadn't even begun. And when it came, he wasn't sure he'd be able to protect her from it. Report in his study when Amelia burst through the door, her face flushed, eyes wild. He stood quickly, concern immediately replacing the calm he'd worn moments ago. "Amelia?" he said, stepping forward. She threw the box of documents onto his polished desk. "Tell me this isn't true." Grayson looked down, frowning as he sifted through the papers. Recognition flickered in his eyes. Too fast. Too familiar. "You knew," she whispered, voice trembling. "Did you know your family destroyed my father's company? That they, your corporation, left us with nothing? My father died thinking he failed us. Grayson's throat worked, but no sound came out. He ran a hand through his hair, then reached for her, but she stepped back. Don't, she said hoarsely. Don't touch me unless you're about to say this is all some giant misunderstanding. I didn't know at first, Grayson admitted, but I found out, recently. After I started falling for you, I was going to tell you, she laughed bitterly. You were going to what? Wait until we were married for real? Until I couldn't walk away? Until I had your last name like a curse I couldn't erase? Grayson's jaw clenched. Number I was going to tell you tonight. That's why I was reading this report. I had my team dig into the old acquisition records. I needed proof. It wasn't just a takeover, Amelia. It was sabotage, done by someone in my family. My mother. Amelia's world tilted. Eleanor, she breathed. She did this? Grayson nodded slowly. She wanted to eliminate every threat to our expansion into the mid-state region. Your father's company was in the way. She orchestrated it. I was still in university then. I had no idea. And now you do. Amelia's voice cracked. And you still let me fall in love with you. I didn't let you, he said, voice breaking. I tried to fight it. I tried to keep things cold and professional. But you made that impossible. She shook her head. You should have told me the moment you knew. I was scared, he admitted, stepping closer. Not of you, of losing you. I've already walked away from everything else. My family, my inheritance. You're the only thing I can't afford to lose. For a moment, neither spoke. The house was too quiet, the walls too heavy with truths. Amelia finally said, her voice quieter than a whisper. You remind me of the best part of my life, and now the worst. How am I supposed to live with that? Grayson's eyes shone. Maybe you don't have to. Maybe we tear the rest of it down and build something new. Just us. Her heart ached. Her hands trembled as she held the letter from her father again. He would hate this. Hate you. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn his forgiveness, Grayson said, even if I never deserve it. She looked at him, the man who'd become her sanctuary, her chaos, her storm. Then she turned and walked out, leaving the box, the memories, and the man behind, just for tonight. But as the door closed, neither of them knew if it was the end or just the beginning of a much harder love story. Sons and other companies affected by the Blackwood Corporation's practices. Her hands trembled as she held the letter. The words blurred through her tears. Someone was trying to right a wrong, and deep down, she knew who it was. She folded the letter and placed it beside Grayson's first note. The weight on her chest didn't vanish, but it softened. It wasn't closure yet, but it was a beginning. She stepped outside, barefoot on the dewy grass, the morning fog still lingering over Willow Creek like a veil of second chances. Across the rusted fence, Grayson stood in his yard, a blueprint in one hand and a steaming mug in the other. Their eyes met. No words, just the silence of recognition, of grief, of something not yet healed but not broken beyond repair. Amelia didn't wave. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. And Grayson, rooted in place, felt the smallest glimmer of hope. Not that she had forgiven him, but that she hadn't closed the door entirely. Back inside, Amelia opened her laptop and began drafting a design proposal for the Willow Creek Learning Center. She'd heard rumors, seen the cleared lot, the soil freshly turned, the permits posted anonymously. She hadn't dared believe it was real, but now she would. If Grayson was going to rebuild something, not just buildings but hearts, then she would too. Not for him, not yet, but for her father, for her mother, for herself, and maybe someday for them. Sons. Due to past damages, the letter never mentioned Blackwood, but Amelia sensed the connection. One evening, as she stood outside her house watching the walls slowly rise, her gaze drifted to Grayson's home. The living room light was on, but he was nowhere in sight. She sighed, thinking of her father, his advice on forgiveness, and of Grayson, the man who gave up everything for her, yet carried the name that once shattered her family. Her heart softened, but the gap remained. She couldn't yet run to him, couldn't yet say she forgave him. Still, she knew, deep down, she was inching closer to that day. Grayson, from his window, saw Amelia under the streetlight, her gaze briefly flicking toward his house. He clenched his fists, his heart aching, but didn't move. He would wait, even if it killed him. Day by day, Amelia Brooks poured herself into the construction of the new Willow Creek Community Center. Clipboard in hand, she scanned the walls taking shape. This project, a place for children to learn, create, and dream, had been her vision for years. Funded by an anonymous donor she strongly suspected was Grayson, it gave her something to focus on, something that wasn't her torn heart. 2 months had passed since she'd walked away from him, after discovering the Blackwood Corporation had destroyed her father's company, Brooks and Sons. Her father's advice had helped her let go of some pain, but not all, not yet. She kept glancing at Grayson's house. The light was often on, but his silhouette rarely appeared. She missed him. She hated that she did, but she couldn't deny it. Grayson Blackwood had changed. After confirming his family's role in the downfall of Brooks and Sons, he had renounced his inheritance, cut ties with his mother, Ella Lahner, and stepped down from the Blackwood board. He lived simply now, working remotely with a nonprofit that supported small businesses devastated by large corporations. Quietly, without credit or fanfare, he funded Amelia's center, building materials, engineers, even anonymous grants to her family. Not to buy forgiveness, to help her dream thrive. Every night he stood by the window watching her. She worked under the floodlights, hair tied up, eyes full of fire. He missed her laugh, even her fury. But he stayed away. One crisp fall afternoon, volunteers arrived at the site. Amelia barely noticed the man in the flannel shirt and baseball cap hauling paint cans, until he turned. Grayson. Her heart stuttered. "Hey, Brooks," he said softly, sheepish. "I just came to help." She stared, trying to stay composed. "Grayson, what are you doing here?" He shrugged, setting the paint down. "Heard the project needed hands. I had time, so—" He trailed off, his gray eyes holding hers. "It looks incredible, Amelia. You've done something extraordinary." She turned away, flustered. "Thanks," she muttered, eyes back on her clipboard. But he didn't leave. He stayed all day, painting, hauling, laughing with the kids. Amelia watched from afar. He was different. Not the heir of a dynasty, just Grayson, a man trying to make things right. As the sun dipped low, the site emptied. Only they remained, golden light pouring through unfinished windows. "I didn't come to push you to talk," Grayson said, voice quiet. "I just wanted to help." "I know," she replied, facing him. "And I see what you've been doing. The contractors, the funding, the money to help my family. It's you, isn't it?" He nodded. "I didn't want you to think I was trying to buy you back. I just wanted to fix what my family broke." Silence. She looked at him, really looked, and saw not the man who once infuriated her, but the one she couldn't stop loving. "Grayson, I'm trying to forgive," she whispered. "My dad told me to let go, but I'm scared." He stepped closer, his voice raw. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Amelia, but I'll spend my life proving I love you, whether you give me a chance or not." Something shattered inside her. She stepped forward, wrapping her arms around him, sobbing into his chest. "I missed you," he whispered into her hair. "Every single day." Rebuilding. Together. In the weeks that followed, Amelia and Grayson began, slowly, to rebuild. They painted the center's walls, argued over window styles, and laughed until their stomachs hurt. Grayson never returned to the Blackwood world. He didn't want thrones, just her. One afternoon, as construction neared completion, Grayson led Amelia to a corner of the site. A wooden plaque was mounted there. "Amelia Brooks Community Center, where dreams are built." She covered her mouth, tears shimmering. "Grayson, when did you—" "When you weren't looking?" He smiled. Then quietly he knelt. A simple silver ring glinted in the light. "I don't have castles or crowns, just this heart, and it's yours. Be my wife, this time for real. Build a home with me, one made of love and truth." Amelia dropped to her knees, sobbing as she kissed him. "You idiot," she whispered. Yes, they kissed beneath the open sky, the breeze slipping through unfinished windows like a blessing. A house called love. Their wedding was small, simple, beneath ancient oaks in a Willow Creek meadow. Amelia's frail father sat front row, beaming. As she walked toward Grayson, no part of her hesitated. This wasn't a contract, this was forever. Amelia soon opened Brooks Design, a firm focused on sustainable, community-driven projects. Grayson founded a nonprofit supporting small businesses harmed by corporations like Blackwood, ensuring Brooks and Sons and others like it were never forgotten. They finished restoring Amelia's once ruined house, transforming it into a second community center for young artists and struggling families. Bright murals adorned its walls. Stained glass windows caught the light. A house once full of ghosts now echoed with laughter. One evening, as they stood in the yard watching children run and play, Grayson wrapped his arms around her and whispered, "If home is where the heart is, you're my forever home."